I don't have a ponytail, that's for sure. So you stuck with me. We just saw a beautiful woodland kingfisher. He's just sitting on the branch. There he goes. It's nice to see those kingfishers again. There was a wonderful big kudu bull that came and drank at this little mud wallow to my right. Let's see if we can see him again. He did just move off. There he is. He's now behind the bush. We might see him. There he is. You see those beautiful horns, those big spiral horns. He's hiding from us now, but we did get a glimpse of him drinking over there. And off he goes by himself. I don't see any other kudus around at the moment. It's always nice to see those big males with those beautiful horns. They really stand out. I see the elephant have clearly been very busy here. Pulled out this tree and dragged it across the road. VM says they're protesting. Oh dear. I'm heading back towards those lions. I'm thinking maybe we get lucky and they start moving a little bit earlier, because it has cooled down a bit. So hopefully they decide to go for a drink at one of the waterholes. There's a lot of water around what I've seen, and they weren't far from Treehouse Dam, so maybe they head towards Treehouse Dam for a drink. I'm hoping. That's what I'm thinking. So let's see. We're not too far from them. But it has been great being back, and again, thank you everybody for all the wonderful comments and messages. It's so good to be back on Safari Live again, back in this area guiding. And as I said, I have been guiding in other areas. I was in Botswana a week ago, which was lovely and different. I was in the Kalahari about 3 weeks ago, so I have been busy traveling quite a lot. And I've got some wonderful trips planned for the year, which I'm very excited. Actually a few viewers from Safari Live that I'm taking on safari. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, I'm going to look for these lions. Maybe they've moved off, let's hope, and headed towards the water. While I do that, let's head back to Ali, who has got a ponytail, and see where she is.
Oh, Byron, it is very good to have you back. Definitely a source of entertainment. Now, we are at Gowrie Dam, and I think it's pretty much time to call our search of the leopard off, because we've been getting so many conflicted and different reports that I don't even know what to believe anymore. Somebody's seen the tracks here, but somebody else saw them going there, but somebody had the animal going here. But so it's been a little bit tough, and we've pretty much checked all of the roads on the southern side of Djuma, southeastern corners of Djuma, and I cannot find not even one track. So if they are there, either somebody drove over the tracks and I cannot find them anymore, or there's also the possibility that they're still somewhere in the block doing exactly what the lions are doing, and they're just resting, and only later they're going to get up and going. Now, this would be a perfect place for them to come and sit in, so I would really like them to come here at least during the night, so that we have a starting point to start looking for them. But I think for now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to call the leopard search off. It's also starting to get a little bit darker, so the eyesight is not going to get any better. So I really don't know where we're going to go anymore. I think we're going to go explore other areas, let the universe surprise us, and see what else can we find. Julie, you're wondering if animals can get malaria. As far as I understand, yes, they can get malaria, but not quite the same strands as us humans do, but they can get malaria. Now, I haven't researched too much into the subject, but I remember asking myself this question a while ago, and normally malaria is a parasite that affects the liver when you're being bitten by a mosquito that carries the disease. So as far as I know, yes, they do get it. However, I don't think it affects them as much as it affects us. It seems like Gowrie Dam is fairly empty, and I would say dry as well. Not too many things happening around here, but I do want to check quickly with my binoculars just in case there's anything lurking around, perhaps an interesting bird or a family of mongoose that might be anywhere around here that we could spend some time with. It seems, however, that is definitely not the case. I wonder if Daryl came around and just chased everyone the same way he's been terrorizing everyone in camp because he wants to get all of the marulas. Now, Nope, seems like there's not much actioning happening here, so we're gonna carry on, see if perhaps we can find anything else on the way. Seems like Lion has managed to find the lazy lion, so let's go back to him and ask him for his best lion sleeping pose.
Well, it wasn't very difficult, Ellie, because they haven't moved. So they're still in the same spot. It doesn't look like any of them have moved at all. Which I'm surprised about. I was really hoping that they started to get a bit active and start moving around. But on our drive now, on our little loop, I did see the tracks of this pride and what looked like they were chasing buffalo. And I think... Viam, who saw them this morning? Did you see? Sorted out. Do apologize for that little glitch. We lost signal there, I think. But you're back now, and we're still with our lions. They have not moved, and there was one or two little yawns. I'm not sure if they're going to get active soon. I was hoping with this change in weather, it's become quite cloudy and looks and feels as if there is a storm on the way, maybe a little bit later. But the temperature has dropped, so I was hoping these lions would decide to move around. But for the moment, they are still very relaxed. Never know. There's a bit of stretching. There's a bit of movement. There's that little cub, it's a youngster. There we go. It's moving. Tristan was telling me about this one. It still looks quite young. I think there are the 5 females, the 6 sub-adults, and then that one little cub. Or I think that's what it was, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to sit here a little bit longer. Let's see if they start waking up. But let's go across to Ali, who's managed to find a stripy individual to show you.
Yes, we didn't manage to get the spots, but we did get the stripes. Yay! Now the stripes have gone away. Please come back. Right, I'm gonna go around. I'm hoping that these stripes won't be as difficult to as this clearly proven to be this afternoon, but hopefully we'll be right here. Well, they are also trying to camouflage themselves in around the impala. Now, I don't know if you can hear, but there's a lot of wind. The storm is definitely picking up a bit of intensity, and the wind is, although very refreshing, I'm sure it's not going to be ideal for communication. Now, I don't know what it is this afternoon, but the stripes have also gone into a specific spot where we cannot get to, and although the zebra is still hiding in between there and we can see it, what we do see a lot easier are all the impala. So maybe this afternoon I just should have gone and looking for impala and spending some time with impala. I reckon they were, and they are, a lot friendlier than some of the other creatures that I've been trying to follow today. Nice big breeding herd, all of them around here, and I think they're all starting to gather for the afternoon. So normally during the day they'll be in different areas, or they won't be as close to each other as they are now. But I also think that because of the wind that I'm sure you can start to hear now, they're gonna try and move into a little bit of a thicker bush just to guard themselves from the wind, especially with all the little all the little ones jumping around. Somebody's hungry, early dinner, perhaps midday snack. Oh, that is so sweet. I do love impala, and I think it's terrible that they're so overrated for all of us. Somebody is definitely very hungry. Now, I don't want to move, because if we do move, likely what we're going to do is just give them a bit of a fright, and then they're going to start running and moving around. I must say, whenever I go away, one of the things that I miss the most are the impala. Because yes, obviously you miss the lions and the leopards, but I feel like that's almost a given. But the impala, they become this sort of like comfort that you know that they'll always be around, and you can just look anywhere and you'll have that reminder of African wildlife, and you'll see the impala. And then you don't necessarily notice it until you haven't seen them for a while, and then you see them again and you're like, oh, impala! Yes! my goodness, what is going on? Got all the youngsters running around like crazy. Okay. So I think it's perhaps exercise time, all of them running. Okay. Now, I don't think that they were running away from any potential predator. I think it's just the little ones having their last bout of exercise and of energy before they settle for the next few hours to sleep. Had there been a predator around and had they all been being chased by something, chasing, they likely would have all started running and we would have heard some alarm calls of sorts. Now, the only animal where they do not make any of these alarm calls is if wild dogs are chasing them. But we haven't had any wild dogs around, and I know they've been seen just on the southern side of Chitwa and on Elephant Plain, so hopefully tomorrow we'll have them coming our way. That would be wonderful to see some dogs. It's always nice to spend time with some endangered creatures. This is a very big herd of impala. Must be about 100 here. They are such pretty things, so elegant. Now it seems like there are a few more coming in and perhaps a few more are heading towards the dam. So I think let's try and turn around and see if perhaps, because I see there now that the wind calmed down a little bit, they're heading onto the open area. Right, seems like Tristan has worked out the female leopard territories now, so let's head over to him and find out who likes eating impala.
Well, they do like eating impalas, most of them anyway, and it would be nice if we could find some of them on impala at some stage soon to catch up with some of our females that are not around. Right, so we've drawn our map again. Again, please excuse the sizes of these areas are not right, and neither are the shapes. Vessels is most definitely not a thin line like that, but I forgot about it, and so I had to add it in quickly, and various other things are not quite right about this, so I do apologize, but you'll get the idea of the general kind of gist of what's going on here. Right, so you might have noticed, though, on my new map that I've drawn, I've even been fancy and I've added little water points, because water holes are important to our females' territories and also for you guys just to get a reference of where some of these places are, because I know a lot of the time we talk about Sabi Dam or something like that, and it's difficult for you to conceptualize exactly where that is. So it's just I'm going to show you roughly the dams around us so that you can get an idea of where these things are when we talk about them. Anyway, let's start off with, well, the most sort of central leopard to Djuma at the moment, which is obviously Thandi and her cub, and they are the ones that have been around Djuma the most. What I'm going to start with is, this is Gari Dam over here. So we've got Gari Dam in the middle, Buffelshoek Dam on the top, Treehouse and Twin Dams. When she first had her cub, this is the original den site, was over there. She then subsequently went down a little bit this way to Nyala Road South, and then she shifted right into the middle, which is where she had it for a long time on the Mulawati area and then around Philemon's Dip area, and then she kind of pushed up and moved. What we know from Thandi so far is this is kind of roughly the area she's been spending a lot of time kind of moving around in and kind of hanging about in. So this has been her sort of movement over the last little bit. So that's all Thandi over there, plus cub. Now, Thandi and cub is interesting because there's been very few sightings of Thandi and cub recently. As soon as Hukumuri showed up on the scene, her movement pattern changed completely. She went from a relaxed individual on Djuma that spent a massive amount of time moving in a very small area to an individual that completely changed her behavior. We saw her go from here to Buffelshoek Dam and then straight south and into Little Gari and then pushed off into Chitwa. And the last time she was seen prior to this morning was here at Chitwa Camp. So she was seen right there on the edge of the dam and her trucks were going into Torchwood. So it seems like what she's doing is now shifting her cub and herself into this area and pushing a little bit more. So she's extending her territory now into that section. So she's added a little bit more, which I'll just highlight over there. And that's because I think Tingana is spending a lot of time there. Now, Rebecca, if you can just repeat that. It didn't come through very clearly for me. So female leopards can roam freely through the male's territories if they are being mated by that male, and that's from Caesar. So Caesar, yes, they can kind of come through and move around in a male's territory. We know that Thandi moved freely in Tingana's territory, so did Shadow, so did Kuchava, so they were kind of protected by him, and so yes, they moved freely and they mated with him, and so he was happy to look after them. When it comes to a new male, so Hukumuri, then things change quite a bit, and I'll get into that shortly because we're going to get into Shadow after we come back. And so I'm going to send you off to Byron, who's got the lines, and hopefully they are starting to wake up, and they're actually in an area where Shadow might pop up if she is around.
Well, we did have a little bit of movement, Tristan. One lioness came out the bush. There she is over there. So, yeah, I think I was right. The 5 adult lionesses, the 6 sub-adults, and then this little cub over there. It's got his head up at the... Or he or her or his head. I'm not sure if it's a male or female. Is it a female? Thanks, Fiona. It's a little female. Couldn't really see with her lying in the grass there. That's nice to see. And then the 2 males that are just on the other side. There's the one male is still fast asleep. There he is. There's a little bit of movement, but now it seems as though... Oh, there we go. I think he's just changing position. I don't think he's going to move anytime soon. Maybe with his leg lying on that female on the other side, or that sub-adult, might get them to move. I often find it fascinating how lions are able to lie around like this and roll on top of each other, or when one is resting, another one may walk up and fall on that one. You know, it's quite entertaining to watch them sleep and doze off like this and lie on each other. Very social cats, always a bit of contact. It maintains the bond within the pride. That one just put its legs on top of the other one's face. Oh, a little sneeze by that male startled everyone. There we go, some heads up. Now that's often a good sign that they might begin or start getting a bit active. Stretching, rolling around. Yeah, a little drongo calling. I had some European bee eaters earlier too, so still a lot of beautiful birds around. Alright, well it sounds like Ali's managed to find some animals that are a lot more active than these lions at the moment. Let's go and see what it is.
Well, we are still with the beautiful impala, and finally the zebra has decided to come and join the open space. Still trying to be a little bit of incognito, hiding behind the only available bush, but still there. First lady, you're wondering why we don't see any giraffe or zebra on Djuma. Well, luckily I've got the proof right here that we do see zebras every now and again. And a few days ago I also saw a giraffe. Now, it just had movement sometimes during the winter time, when it's a little bit harder for them to find water and different food sources. You'll see that like they'll congregate in certain areas a little bit more. So we actually tend to see zebra every so often, and so do we do the same with giraffe. Now, part of the trick or part of the issue with this time of the year is that there's enough water and food for them in the blocks in between the roads. So a lot of the times it's not that easier to spot them because they really don't have any reason to come close to the road where we can actually see them. And now, because zebras and giraffes are not considered high-profile animals by the general rules of the reserve, then we are not allowed to go off-road and get closer to them. So that's perhaps part of the reason why it's a little bit harder. Having said this, I haven't seen any zebra, or more than just this one in the last few days. I did see a small breeding herd, I think maybe 3 or 4 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. But also the fact that the lions have been around, you tend to see that whenever the lions are on the property, the general prey species become a little bit more skittish, and they tend to go away from one place to the next or move a lot more than that they would in their efforts to try and avoid the predators. Now, I'm not too sure if the zebra is trying to make itself into an impala or if it's actually just eating the parts of the termite mound. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not eating the grass but part of the termite mound, and sometimes they eat the dirt and they eat the ground. Oh, you're actually sniffing other zebras' dung, and here I was talking about you eating. Often they'll eat dirt just to get some of the nutrients that they do. Blue Kazi, you're wondering if zebras are related to horses. Yes, they are. They are in the equid family. However, they don't have the same temperament as horses do. And although a lot of people have tried to tame them, they are not really all that tameable. Also, their back structure is a little bit different, so it doesn't allow for people to ride on them as we would with a normal, or for as long as we would with a normal horse. Now, this particular zebra that we're looking at, I think it's a youngster that's been recently kicked out from its group, from its harem where it was born into. And just as it happens with the lions, once they reach a certain age, then the males, the stallion, the dominant one, becomes less and less tolerant of them and starts pushing the young boys away because they start being seen as competition. So I think this is potentially the reason why this young male is here by himself. He could try to reconnect or find some other young boys that are in the same position just for safety purposes, but in the meantime, because he hasn't found any, that's probably the reason why he's hanging out with all of the impala. More eyes in a specific area normally mean that there are more people watching or more eyes out there just to try and spot any potential predators. And they would roughly have the same predators. I mean, impala, leopards, wild dogs would come and try to get either the impalas or the zebra. The zebra might be a little bit too big for wild dogs, but if it's a very big pack of wild dogs, you might try and do that. Well, you just did something very unusual. What are you doing eating leaves? Normally zebras eat the grass, and I think we've got a bit of a rebel that's now enjoying the leaves. You are really a very confused zebra, aren't you? Now, they normally don't do it, and I would imagine that there's something in this particular tree that perhaps it finds interesting. Perhaps there's a nutrient or something that its system needs or requires. But very, very unusual to see a zebra actually eating a tree, because they are considerable bulk grazers. They eat a lot of grass. Alright, you seem to be a very puzzling character, aren't you? And off it goes with the rest of the impala. At least they all have the same swishing of the tail, all the movements, and it's funny because even with all of this wind, I would imagine that the flies are driving all of them absolutely crazy, and this is why they're all moving their tails just to try and keep them away from them. Now, this is probably one of the most photogenic bottoms that we see in all of Africa. Endless, yeah, precisely that one. Endless shirts have been made in this way. I'm sure with the bottom part of the zebras and of the elephants, they seem to be quite popular. Alright, I think we're not going to stare at the bottom of a zebra anymore. We're probably just going to leave this, guys, as it's getting dark. But while we carry on and start looking for our next creature, seems like the lions have gone back to sleep, but who knows, maybe Byron can sugar talk them into getting up.
Well, there's been a bit of movement. That little cub has come closer to us. There we go. There's some cleaning on the other lions, but look, this little one is now getting active. He's been moving around a bit. There we go. That lion is cleaning herself. Now, I noticed she's got is that gash, Viam, that you mentioned? Have a look at that. Yeah, that's a serious wound. I wonder what happened there. Was it perhaps from a buffalo, Viam?
I don't know, but it's there for almost a year now.
Oh, really? Well, Viam says this wound has been there for a long time. I don't remember seeing it when I was here in October. I'm just trying to think now. Been there for a while. It's obviously a deep gash that hasn't been able to heal properly. That's quite interesting, because usually these big cats have the ability to heal very, very quickly. So I'm not sure why that one hasn't been able to heal. It doesn't look like it's affected her too much. It doesn't look like she's lost condition or anything like that. There's still this cool breeze at the moment. There's still quite a bit of humidity, but yes, she's actually cleaning it now. Now, usually that helps the wound, but it does look, it looks very sore. not pleasant, but all that cleaning usually does help it. Sure. So now I'm just looking at the way she's cleaning it, and I see it's bleeding a little bit again. But that cleaning of the wound, we know the lion's tongues are very, very rough. So even just her licking a few times like that could open that wound slightly, just cause it to bleed a little bit. But it is cleaning it, so it's important that she does do that. And I've seen with many big cats, cleaning and licking the wound very soon after a while, they will heal. And I think that's why she's cleaning it. Now, Gemma, you were asking when would a vet be called in. So, Gemma, in a situation like this, we wouldn't call a vet in. And some of you might be wondering why. Oh, that is a nasty, deep wound. Some of you may be wondering why we wouldn't call a vet in. Now, we need to remember, I know we do get a little attached to these animals and we see them quite regularly, and it's wonderful to see these lions, but these are wild animals. We are purely here to view and observe them in their natural habitat. These lions, and that wound, for example, and that lioness, that was caused naturally by perhaps a buffalo, or I can only assume it was a buffalo. I'm not sure. But so something that has happened naturally, we cannot interfere with. If, for example, this lioness somehow managed to find a snare that was put there by poachers, then we would call a vet in, because that's human intervention. So that's not a natural injury. Then we would call a vet in and try to help them. But any other injury, natural injury, we need to it's difficult at times, but we need to respect nature and nature taking its course. Survival of the fittest, it's not always easy for us to see, but it is a way for nature to maintain a balance, predators and prey. And, so it is difficult at times to see, but it is something that we need to observe and accept, and even though it might not be easy. All right, well, it sounds like Tristan has been drawing up a storm, and he apparently now thinks he is Picasso. I wonder. Let's go and have a look what Tristan has drawn now.
Well, Byron, Picasso, no, I don't think so. This is more like kindergarten drawing. In fact, I think I'm joining the realms of James in some of the shapes that I've done here. And you can see a lot has happened since you were last year. And the reason why is because we're running out of light. And so I just thought I'd populate a lot of it, and then I'll explain what I've written and add the names as we go. So, without further ado, let's get through all of this. Now, Shadow and Not Barbara is who I said we will discuss next and why they are interesting. This outer section here that's got the red lines all the way through it, this is where Shadow and Barbara used to hang around last year. This was their territory, roughly what I drew last year. And you can see that their entire movement has come this way. So they have shifted east with the disappearance of Kruger, and they have come into this section. Now, you might think that Shadow's section is very large in comparison to Tundi's. Again, this is not in scale. Hoffman should be like this, and so the sections are actually very similar. So Tundi and Shadow, all of these leopards have very similar size to Tundi and Cub. That's about the right scale. The rest of this is completely out of scale. So please don't quote me. If somebody can send me a higher resolution version of a map of this sector, I will do this digitally, and I'll maybe see if we can do a blog post or something, and you guys can get the maps with a much better, proper digital version of it. But anyway, let's get through it. So Shadow and Not Barbara, they've pushed further east with the arrival or the disappearance of Kruger. With the arrival of Hukamuri, they have completely vanished. We don't know where they are at the moment. Nobody has seen these guys for over 3 weeks. All right. These two were last seen somewhere down in the bottom of Little Gari in the Mulawati drainage line, and then apparently seen on Hoffman's a little bit after that. But nobody can confirm this Hoffman sighting or this Little Gari sighting with pictures. So I'm skeptical at both of these. And the reason why I'm skeptical is because both of them were apparently just Shadow. And so it was a situation where Shadow was just moving around and kind of doing her own thing. So I don't know if it would be just Shadow. What worries me about this situation the most is that the last time I had tracks for these two, or what I think was tracks for these two, was in this spot right here. The next morning, I found Hukumuri in that exact same spot, to Treehouse Dam. So he moved up like this, and at Treehouse Dam was where we found him, and he was kind of salivating and not looking as though he was tolerating anything. And I wonder if he maybe didn't bump into these two on a kill here somewhere, and maybe something has happened to not Barbara. I don't know, but it's all obviously speculation, but she has definitely moved, and she is not around as much as we normally see her. The thing about Shadow is there's no reason to panic yet, because Shadow does this sometimes. She does disappear for long periods of time, especially if there's a threat around. She'll just go off the radar, and we really struggle to find her. But essentially, this is where Shadow is now pushing. She's pushing further and further east towards Treehouse Dam on Little Gowrie and Twin Dams on Djuma. And in fact, this whole section here, you can see this green line that's cutting through it. I'll get into that next, because this green block that you see here is the Shadulu female. So Shadulu has also made a serious move with Hukumuri. As Hukumuri's territory has extended more towards the east, and he's come into Djuma, so you can see the lines for her. She's all heading up and sort of northeast into Djuma and away from the bottom where she started. When she was born, this is where she was born down here. This is where her mother hangs around, so this is the mother's territory over there. Obviously it's a lot larger than that. She then was seen a lot around this dam here. This is called Big Dam, which is on Arethusa Private, or Shirley's property, and she hung around here for about 3-4 months last year, and then she slowly but surely is pushing up onto the southern side of Arethusa airstrip, and then now up into Djuma and into this area. So her movement is all coming east, same as Tundi, same as Shadow. It seems as everybody's pushing east as Tingana is going east, and so Hukumuri is coming east. So you can see the effects what a male leopard has on females. It's not the male leopards that are, the female leopards having an effect on the males at the moment. It's the opposite way around as the change is occurring. So this is all Shadulu that is in here at the moment, and it seems as though she's also making an advance towards Djuma. You've then got 2 circles on this side. These 2 circles are for leopards that we don't see. The blue circle is for Tiani. Her territory is very small after Salesh died, and she's just expanding out. So hers is going in every direction at the moment outwards. That could also be why Shadulu is pushing further to the east. And the red circle is her sister Insele, not from the same litter. Insele is a much older sister, but come from the same mother, and she's now pushing further to the west as Tiani is expanding out. So that's the kind of breakdown of the western leopards and what's going on. But you can see a very definite shift as Tingana has receded. Anderson being very solid means that none of the leopards here are really pushing too much out of their territories, but as Tingana is receding, and so Hukumuri is coming in, so all of our leopards are shifting to the east. Right, so we'll get into the last little phase of it, which is the southeastern leopards after this, but we're going to send you back across, I think, to Byron, who's with the Nkuhuma Pride.
Now, we're getting more and more activity now from the Lion Pride. They're starting to clean each other. Look at that, all 3 lions cleaning now. That is all a sign that they're starting to get a bit active. Sue, you're asking how rough the tongue is. Now, I haven't felt it personally, but I've looked at it quite closely before in sightings, and I've heard it being kind of compared to, I think, rough sandpapers. So if you can think of very, very coarse sandpaper, you actually get different different textures of sandpaper. Some are a lot more rough and coarse compared to others that are very fine. The really rough, coarse sandpaper is apparently what the tongue is like, and it has got little fine hairs on it. And we also see it. A nice indication of a rough tongue is when they're feeding on a carcass, a buffalo or wildebeest or whatever the animal is. You hear lions, they often lick the carcass to open it a little bit more, clear some of the hair off, and that shows you how rough that tongue is. So I suppose that would be the best thing I could describe it to, some really rough sandpaper. If you imagine that being pulled over your skin, it's not pleasant. And I think they could take some of your skin off, if I'm not mistaken, with their rough tongues, if they lick for a long period of time in the same spot. At least there are a few heads up now, and they are cleaning each other. We've been very patient. I've been hoping to see these lions get up and go for a drink, down at the waterhole, but maybe they were a little bit too active yesterday. It was very warm today, so they're possibly still enjoying this cool weather before they decide to move. See that lioness actually nibbling a little bit, possibly found a tick, trying to get a tick off the ears. Lions are responsible for keeping each other clean, keeping insects off like ticks. Sounds like Ellie's been wandering around all over this afternoon, but she's managed to find some of my favorite animals, some more of them, which I'm not sure if it's the same ones we saw earlier. Let's go and have a look. The beautiful beasts that are elephant up on quarantine.
Well, I am not sure if it's the same ones that you saw earlier either, but if it is, then it's worth having a second look at them, because now that the sun has started to dip and we've got this massive storm coming, it just looks incredible, doesn't it? With the dark elephants and then the dark clouds behind us, it is something really, really beautiful. I think it's probably one of my favorite views now for the summer. And you can see they're very chill. They're just munching on all the marulas they can find at the base of the tree. So this youngster, as a matter of fact, is the one that I had this morning at Treehouse Dam that was busy having a bit of a drink. And clearly he's the one that's been hanging around in quarantine, as many of them have. I think they're also taking advantage of the fact that Daryl doesn't seem to be anywhere near us at the moment, so they can come and eat a few more marulas before Daryl starts chasing everyone away or starts breaking windows and becoming a little bit of a bad behaved elephant. It's funny, they're almost going, it's almost like they've got a metal detector, but instead of a metal detector, it's their trunk and it detects marulas, because they just put their trunk on the ground and then they just move it all around until they can feel the marula, or rather smell the marula, and then they eat the marula. And then they carry on. Sorry, are we parked on some of your marulas? He is clearly going behind the vehicle, so we have limited motion. We're gonna wait for the next one to come around. Now, we've also been seeing this guy around quite a bit, and it's funny, they've almost got a rotation. They go from Treehouse Dam all the way down to Twin Dams and up again onto quarantine, if they do actually make it down to Twin Dams. And this time of the year, it's almost like, I would assume that in human terms, imagine that it's the candy season type of the year, and you can eat as much candy as you want, and it just falls from trees. What type of the best time of the year? I reckon if somebody created an M&M tree, I would become a balloon, because I would eat them all and get super, super, super round, just like an M&M. These guys at least are eating something that's full of vitamins, so they're recharging not only on sugars, but also on vitamin C and a bunch of nutrients that they need. Also, the seeds are very nutritious. And as we know with elephants, their digestive system is not the greatest, so they won't actually digest all the fruit and everything that they eat. But with marulas, I'm sure they compensate the lack of the lack of perfect digestive system with the amount of marulas that they tend to eat in just one day. Now, also coming behind us, I think then we're going to take this chance to move around and go around. Byron says, though, that for him it would have to be the peanut butter M&Ms. No, I'm a classic kind of gal, so I like the normal M&Ms. Where are you guys going? Seems like Tristan has moved into the tent, so let's head over to him and find out if it's nice and warm at this time of the day.
Well, we have headed back into the tent because unfortunately we lost lights completely, which means that we're in a situation where we have to finish inside, because otherwise you will not see a single thing that I'm doing and I will just become like a ghost, much like our leopards have been this afternoon. Right, back to the map. So I filled in a few more things. I just wanted to add Moya in here because Moya is another female that hangs around in this area. It's also why Shidulu might be pushing up a bit. She's getting pressure from Ingrid Dam and Moya at the bottom. So Ingrid Dam is the mother, Moya over there. Now we come up to the eastern side. So as I've been saying, everybody's shifting east. And what does that mean now for everybody else in this map? Up here in Buffelshoek, I keep getting reports from all of the landowners and the sort of guys that drive there that there's 2 different females that are seen up there. Nobody knows who they are. They don't even stop for 1 second. All they do is see a vehicle and they're bolting. So no one knows who they are. They just know that they're females. And there seems to be 2 different ones that apparently they see. Whether or not this is the same female, I have no idea. But apparently one is on the northern side of Buffelshoek. The other one is around Torchwood, Kruger boundary and into a little bit of Buffelshoek over there and around up even towards the Manuleti Kruger Park corner. The one that we do know that is in Torchwood, which is where Thandi is now heading and which one she's going to start encroaching on quite a lot, is Nkanyeni. Now Nkanyeni, again, like I say, these are not long territories. Actually, most of them are quite wide territories, but because I don't have a wide piece of paper, so I've drawn these very poorly. But Nkanyeni used to hang around in Torchwood excessively. She used to be always in this area, and you used to find that she used to hang around kind of the southern section, and then she used to go into Nkoro, a little bit into Cheetah Plains and back again. What seems like it's happened is now that Thandi is shifted this way, and also that Kuchava, which is this blue one in here, so we'll get it Kuchava, just write that in there. Kuchava. Right. Now that Kuchava's in there, it means that Nkanyeni's pushed a little bit further east, and she's currently got a cub. So she is not on her own. Nkanyeni is with a cub, and they are currently sitting around here. There's a drainage line that runs here called the Rupapi, and they're in the Rupapi drainage line and kind of pushing more into Kruger and back a little bit into Cheetah Plains as well. But this is where Nkanyeni is, and I know a lot of you know her, so that's quite nice that you can get an update on her, and she has 1 cub, which is quite nice. Right, so Rebecca, you love Nkanyeni the most? Excellent. I'm so glad. I'm sorry that my favorite leopard, Thandi, is pushing your favorite leopard away. That's the way it goes. We'll talk about it later, exactly. So Nkanyeni there, hanging out, going into Nkoro, Cheetah Plains, and a little bit into Mala Mala, which is very typical for Nkanyeni. That's kind of the way that she moves around. Kuchava has now inserted herself in here. She apparently has cubs in there, which is a drainage line over this side somewhere. How many cubs is unknown, so we don't know how many cubs at the moment, but apparently somewhere in there's a Nets waterhole right here, and she's just off the waterhole in a drainage line section. She comes up to Chitwa Dam, a little bit into this area if she's mating with Tingana, but obviously hasn't done that for a while, and then she goes back and into the sort of Chitwa Nets cut line, that area over there, and hangs around. Now the interesting one who has basically kind of sort of been a surprise in all of these female territories is this circle over here, which is a female called Sabi. So I'll try and write it. I'm sorry, it's upside down. Sabi plus 2 cubs, brand new ones. So they are also denning in this area over here. So somewhere there is where they're denning. Now Sabi moves around in this section, and she's a new addition to this whole system, and I wonder if she's going to push Kuchava up. And that's why I worry about Shadow, is because there's all these leopards going on, but Shadow is not making an appearance, and Sabui is pushing further north. Kuchava seems to be coming further west, and that means that Shadow is not marking territory as much as she should be, which is very interesting. Right, that basically concludes the female leopards. I mean, there's a lot to talk about on here, and there's a lot more we could get into, but like I say, we are running out of time a bit, so I will address more questions about it at any stage. If anybody wants to ask them, they're more than welcome to. But while we kind of contemplate the females and their movement around town, let's send you back across to Byron, who I believe is staring at the moon, I think.
Well, I was going to make a joke, Tristan, about contemplating females and staring at the moon, but maybe it's not appropriate. Beautiful moon that's beginning to wax, so starting to get larger, starting to see more and more of the moon. And I can just hear lions yawning around me at the moment, and we're going to put some infrared on. There's been a bit more activity, a bit more cleaning. The other male we can't really see at the moment. Oh, can you see him there, VM? I think a little bit left. Is he not through there? There he is. Oh, his head is up at the moment. I heard him yawn and stretch. Maybe he did. There we go. That's another yawn. So I'm thinking that he might decide to get up and move soon. I'll keep an eye on him. maybe he decides to head a bit closer to the pride. I was really hoping they would get up a bit earlier and move around, but they seem very relaxed at the moment. Oh, nice cool breeze. Oh, much better than it was earlier. It was very hot when we got started this afternoon. Now I'm assuming these lions will, we've been watching them most of the day, and they've been resting, but they do look hungry, and it appears as though they did try hunt last night, but they weren't successful. So I'm assuming that later they when they do get active, they'll possibly go and drink some water, and then move and try to hunt something. So who knows? Maybe tomorrow morning we find them with a kill, on the remains of a kill. I can hear one of my favorite little creatures at the moment, a pearl-spotted owlet, calling in the distance. Got that beautiful whistle. There's also, we've parked very close to a marula tree at the moment, and these marula fruit have been dropping right next to us. VM has been a bit nervous, worried that the marula fruit is going to fall on his head. But luckily, I think we're just out of reach of this marula tree's fruit.
Like a bomb shot from Death Marula.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking about the marulas, and I was chatting about it earlier, about all the elephant, and Ali's says she's got some elephant that are enjoying the marula fruit at the moment.
Well, seems like they've had way too many marulas for the afternoon, and now they have both moved off the marulas. One of them has actually carried on walking. I'm not too sure if maybe he had a sugar overdose and he needs some water for his system. And then the youngster, actually the older one over here, is busy eating what it seems to be a bush willow, a giant bush willow if I'm not mistaken. Now, if you're wondering about the coloration of our picture in whites and black and white, or it almost seems like a sepia color, it's because we are watching the elephants using our infrared light. So you see everything looks pretty normal around here, but we use the light when we look at diurnal animals so that we don't really impact them, and then we can spend some more time, because we're not allowed to use the spotlight with animals that are more active during the day. Now the elephant is just ahead of us, and he's been munching away. Oh, are you tired now? So as I was mentioning earlier with the buffalo and the tannin, a lot of the times the trees, when they start getting predated upon by an elephant, then they start putting out the tannin, or start concentrating the tannin on their leaves or on the branches of the trees, just to make itself taste less appealing to the elephant, so that they're going to get tired and walk away and not carry on feeding off it before they finish it off, which is exactly what happened here. This elephant has just decided, poof, don't like this anymore, it's tasting funny, and then off I'm gonna go. So he's actually gone a little bit further down the road, so we're gonna follow him to see if perhaps he eats something else. Right, he is not too far away from us, so it's not like I'm too worried, but seems like he's walking with some intent, and I wonder if now he's walking towards the other elephant or what they're doing, because they're both very territorial about their marulas. Lucas, you're wondering what's the biggest elephant that's ever been alive. Now, I'm actually not too sure. I think some of the bigger elephants that we've had have been the big tuskers, and there have been quite a few in the Kruger National Park, and also recorded in areas in Kenya and in Tsavo National Park. Just in terms of the general height, I'm not too sure the general weight. I would imagine that it's probably somewhere around 5 to 5.5 tons, perhaps, the biggest elephant that I could imagine, or that there's ever been around. I'm actually not too sure what the record is for the biggest elephant, but I'm sure it will be somewhere online. The Google universe has got all sorts of good information, so perhaps if anybody wants to check and just send us the answer using the hashtag #SafariLife, that would be wonderful. What a beautiful view. Seems like not only the elephants are out and about at this time of the night, so let's head to Byron, and I think his patience has paid off.
Well, I think so too, Ali, and well, I'm glad you got to see those Ellies again at the end. But look here, we've got a little bit of activity now. This cub is getting playful. The lions are moving around. Most of them seem to be just moving into the road. Have a look. This male is displaying phlegm. Sorry, Vim. Oh, here comes the other male, and he's just lying down. That male, however, is displaying phlegm, that phlegm grimace. A female urinated there, and he's busy tasting. You see how he tastes that urine, puts it on his tongue, and then places it on the back of his palate, on that Jacobson's organ. It's called a Jacobson's organ. Allows them to tell whether or not the females are in estrus. And this male seemed quite interested in one of the females earlier. So I think that's why he is hanging around here. And it's interesting that so that process of tasting the urine and putting it on the Jacobson's organ is known as phlegm or phlegm grimace. This is when they pull their face like that and it looks as if they're smiling or snarling. So interesting to see. But the other male isn't interested in coming any closer. So I wonder if this one to our left is a bit more dominant. That would be my guess. So this one is just keeping his distance. As long as he doesn't get too close to the other male and the female, then he should be fine. A lot of activity here at the moment. Look at those, that little cub playing. Wonderful to see. Oh, what a great afternoon. Lions, elephant, Ali saw some zebra. Tristan Da Vinci drew for us. That was great. Pointed out all the leopard territories. I'm sure a lot of you found that quite interesting. He may have to give me a lesson, I think, again. I can just make sure I haven't forgotten anything. And there are some new names I heard him mention that I don't recognize. Great first afternoon back for myself. It really, I've enjoyed it a lot. I hope you have too. I felt a little rusty in the beginning. I don't know. So give me a few days. I'm sure I'll find my rhythm again. It just felt a bit strange, different guiding again. But thank you again, everybody, for all the wonderful comments, and the questions this afternoon were great. Always enjoy new, interesting questions. There's definitely a bit more movement now. I think often what happens, the lions get up, they move, stretch, yawn, maybe lie what looks like they're going to be lying in the middle of the road, and then possibly start moving later. And possibly trying to hunt. Michael, thank you very much. You say thank you for the epic drive. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. I'm glad we found these lions fairly early on. They growled initially. We thought they were in the block, but fortunately they were in a nice open area for us to see them and view them. Well, thank you very much to Tristan and Ali and Fergs and Senzo on the other vehicles, and of course the voices in my head. It was Rebecca this afternoon in final control. Thank you, Rebecca. Vim, thanks very much. We'll see you all tomorrow morning on Safari Live. Have a wonderful evening and goodbye, everyone.